So try that again. We're a bit further to walk today than usual. We're going to walk out towards Highland Park and the reservoir. Just stop here because behind me on top of where my coffee cup is. And then just below that is the intersection of Penn and Negley, which was where I did the first episode. So I'm sort of a little bit further down Penn Avenue. If I flip the camera, you'll be able to see that I'm directly in front of the cathedral. So this little nexus here, psychogeographic valence and sort of the attribute of quiddity, lumped together simply because I have done this aesthetic act here and grouped them together. This is a very low frequency receiver, which means that morning. This is a very low frequency receiver, which means that it is tuned to receive electromagnetic activity at around 60 hertz. That means that you can use this to capture sferics. Sferics are the electromagnetic burst caused by lightning strikes, often hundreds of miles away, where that activity then resonates through the Earth's atmosphere and is picked up as little chirps, squirks, squabbles. Now, 60 hertz is also the frequency of the electromagnetic activity of the urban grid, right, the power grid. I don't pick up the delicate chirpings of the sferics. Instead, I get this unrelenting wall of electromagnetic activity that's caused by the cables and wires. Morning! Behind me is the Highland Park Reservoir up those steps, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to record in a couple of locations around the reservoir. It should be quite striking with the fog that's in the air today. I think I actually heard some sferics out there. When I get back in and mix down, I'll see if I can highlight that. But I think even just being a little bit further away, like I think just that one cable, you can hear that the hum is still very present, but reduced from where, like down on Penn Avenue or in front of my house, where there's just such a buzz. This was more like a delicate counterpoint, and look there, right? So without a doubt, one of the things that I'm awful at is managing cables and sound. I try something new with the microphone this time. I have no idea what it sounds like. I think it probably sounds a little bit ratty. It looked good on the levels, but so right now I'm just using the regular phone mic. I'm going to look into different options, and we'll all probably be disappointed with the sound. For breakfast, I'm going to make some eggs Benedict. I'm trying to teach myself how to make a good hollandaise sauce. Post psychogeographic breakfast. We'll have another go at hollandaise. My last attempt came out a bit greeny on the sauce. That walk out to Highland Park that's probably the furthest I've walked since the weather turned bad in the last 6 weeks or so. There was a summer I had about a 10-week recuperation period from some surgery on my head. Towards the end of that, taking some walks was a good way to start to build up some strength. It had been a pretty debilitating recovery period. I'd lost hearing. The hearing that remained was damaged. The frequencies that remained were weird. Things that had been familiar then sounded very unfamiliar, and then they became familiar again. So like the piano sounded very strange. It sounded actually a lot like a ring modulated sound when I first played it after coming home from the hospital, and then over time the brain fills in those gaps. So I actually don't know what I'm hearing most of the time, and I don't think it's accidental that the aesthetic that I'm interested in is unhearable, unheard. Electromagnetism is not a physiologically receivable input, whether our skin or some of our senses, like migratory birds, if we are susceptible, or if we can pick up magnetism, electromagnetism. I suspect we probably can, but for now we need tools like the very, very low frequency receiver to make it immediately apparent to our existing senses. I think it's probably deliberate, if that's a construct. Probably deliberate. Anyway, I think it's probably deliberate that I choose to be aesthetically involved with this kind of material. I think my hearing and the mind that goes behind that is clearly not the mind and the hearing that existed before. And it's not the same as yours, and yours is not the same as mine. And we live in these halos of kind of interpretation and poetry, right? Like I make that deliberate. We can make it deliberate. And that's part of what I want to do with this electromagnetic documentation, that there's this meaningful halo around us. And this is just one way of making that manifest. So if you like this, leave a comment. Also check out my webpage, zenglop.net. I'm at Zenglop on Twitter, and there's podcast, Zenglop the podcast, that you can check out on any of the podcast machine. So in the meantime, my friends, in these strange and wonderful times, you must keep your wits about you. But I will be back next week. Cheers.